Hi students, I truly hope that all of you have gone through the first part of our video, and in this part we'll be right away discussing the poet and his poem I Cannot Forget. So let's look at a brief biography of the poet Alexander Kimel. Alexander Kimel was born in Podaiza in Galicia, which is a place in present-day Ukraine. And he was born in the late 1920s. In 1940, Kimel's family moved to a ghetto. They were forced to move to that ghetto. And as we have seen, ghetto life was so difficult for him. And he was forced to do hard labor every day. And between the years 1941 and 1943, when this man Alexander Kimel and his family were forced to move to that ghetto, there were 10,000 Jews in that ghetto. And between these years, 1941 to 1943, a span of 2.5 years, 9,900 Jews were killed in that ghetto. Only 100 of them were remaining. And there were extreme sanitation conditions, and even Kimel's mother and his family were also killed in that genocide. And in May 1943, Kimel ran away somehow. Maybe it's like a miracle. He just ran away from that ghetto. And 1 month after that, everyone, all the other surviving victims of that ghetto were killed. Okay. Kimel was hiding in surrounding villages and forests, and somehow, again by God's grace, he reached America. He's still alive and living in America. And during a recent interview, when somebody asked him what he learned through the Holocaust, this is what he replied. He said, "We have to be tolerant. I don't care if you are a Catholic, Muslim, or something else, as long as you are a decent human being. That's really what it is." So this is the poet, a Holocaust survivor, Alexander Kimel. And we are going to read a poem by him, I Cannot Forget. I Cannot Forget by Alexander Kimel. Do I want to remember the peaceful ghetto before the raid? Children shaking like leaves in the wind. Mothers searching for a piece of bread. Shadows on swollen legs, moving with fear. No, I don't want to remember. But how can I forget? Do I want to remember the creation of hell? The shouts of the raiders enjoying the hunt? Cries of the wounded begging for life? Faces of mothers carved with pain? Hiding children dripping with fear? No, I don't want to remember. But how can I forget? Do I want to remember my fearful return? Families vanished in the midst of the day, the mass grave steaming with vapor of blood, mothers searching for children in vain. The pain of the ghetto cuts like a knife. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget? Do I want to remember the wailing of the night? The doors kicked ajar, ripped feathers floating the air, the night scented with snow-melting blood, while the compassionate moon is showing the way for the faceless shadows searching for kin. No, I don't want to remember, but I cannot forget. Do I want to remember this world upside down, where the departed are blessed with an instant death, while the living condemned to a short, wretched life and a long, torturous journey into unnamed place, converting living souls into ashes and gas? No, I have to remember and never let you forget. Now, moving on to the analysis of this poem. Right from its title, the poet states a number of times that he cannot forget all the horrid things that he has witnessed in that camp or in that ghetto. He states that the ghetto life is physically and emotionally exhausting. It is a terrific experience, terrifying experience, and those experiences will continue to haunt him as long as he lives. The people inside the ghetto, they were constantly sent on slave labor. They were made to do hardcore labor without rest, without sleep or food. They were made to do work. Here he tells us about his experiences in the ghetto named Rohatyn, spelling Rohatyn, especially between the years 1941 to 1943 until he escaped. In the very first line itself, he is asking, do I want to remember? And this question is like an emotional conflict or an internal conflict. One part of his mind is asking him to stop thinking about all those horrifying experiences. But the other part of his mind, it is asking him again and again, how can I forget all these things? All this trauma has been part of my life. It is part of my memory. It is part of my thought. So, how can I forget? How can I not remember all these things? So, all those thoughts are flowing to his mind like a river. He is thinking about the peaceful ghetto before the raid. Even though he says peaceful ghetto, you cannot take it like the peace and comfort that we experience in our daily life. But compared to the trauma that they experienced after the raid, the days before the raid in the ghetto were comparatively a little bit peaceful. Then he tells us about children shaking like leaves in the wind. They had no proper clothes. They had no proper shelter. All the basic necessities itself were not given to them. Children were shaking in the cold weather. They were shivering. Very often children got hold of many diseases and they died in those camps. Nobody just cared for that. The parents of these children, if at all they were alive, they had to helplessly see their children die before them. They couldn't do anything about it. Mothers searching for a piece of bread. Inside the camp, there were children belonging to different age groups, newborns, toddlers, and so on. Children who didn't understand what all this is about. They used to cry and wail when they were hungry. But the mothers or fathers, they just couldn't help but just keep on looking. Mothers were searching for a piece of bread which they couldn't find anywhere. Shadows on solemn legs moving with fear. Shadows refer to the people. They have lost all their mirth, all their spirit, all their happiness or life. They look like mere shadows, and their legs were sullen due to hard labor because of the heavy work they were made to do. Some of them had legs fractured, legs crippled, but they had to continue with all the work, with all the disability. So these people, they were moving with fear, they were moving with like shadows with their swollen legs. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget? So these memories are just coming to his mind like episodes, and each time his mind is filled with those horrifying memories. He's shaking it off. He's saying, no, I don't want to remember all this. But at the same time, as I told you, the other part of his mind is asking him, how can I forget? I don't want to remember, but I cannot forget these things. This is the trauma that will grip them throughout their life. Do I want to remember the creation of hell? Again, he is slipping into the memories of all those events. He is telling us, should I remember how that place turned into a hell after the raid? The shouts of the raiders enjoying the hunt. The raiders, they came like hunters, so excited to prey upon. They were just shouting and exclaiming. It refers to that sadistic mentality of the raiders. It refers to the Nazi troops. Cries of the wounded begging for life. Faces of mothers carved with pain. Hiding children dripped with fear. So these are the images of the place turned hell that the poet is telling us. Suddenly, the atmosphere was immersed with the cries of the wounded, of the people suffering in pain. They were begging for life. The faces of helpless mothers. Then little children, they were gripped with fear and they were hiding from these tormentors. Again, he is trying to shake away all these memories, all these uh, traumatic memories. And he's saying, no, I don't want to remember. But then again, how can I forget? Do I want to remember my fearful return? Again, he's returning to his memories. He's slipping back to those memories. And what did he see in his mind? Families vanished in the midst of the day. The mass grave steaming with vapor of blood. Families vanished. That means groups of people were killed. Every day, groups and groups of people were killed. They used different methods for group killing. Either they were pushed into those gas chambers or they were thrown into those mass graves, those huge graves, and they were burned alive. And the poet could see in his mind's eye the steaming uh, vapor of blood. See how horrifying these images are. It is even more haunting and horrifying than some unseen ghost that uh, makes us afraid. And see, as I told you, these are things that happened for real in human history. There are many souls, many people who suffered and lost their lives in this torture. They were innocent. What wrong did they do? The only wrong that they did was that they were born as a Jew or a Polish or a Gypsy or a person with some physical or mental challenge. For that, they were denied to live. Mothers searching for children in vain. Sometimes people were just thrown to death in the wink of an eye. When mothers fail to see their children around, they know that they have lost their dear one forever. That kid will either be thrown into that grave and burned to death, or they will be thrown into that gas chamber. The pain of the ghetto cuts like a knife, and the pain is both literal and metaphorical. Even the thought of that past experience is still painful. It's it is a brutal experience. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget? Again, the poet is vainly trying to shake off all these thoughts, but he fails. He's asking, how can I forget? Do I want to remember the wailing of the night? Even at night, they couldn't sleep peacefully. The atmosphere around was echoing with the crying of people, with the wailing of people. The doors kicked ajar, ripped feathers floating the air. They never experienced the security and comfort of sleeping inside a closed room. Anytime anyone may kick open and come inside, pull out a group of people and kill them. So just imagine the fear of danger lurking around the corner. You're not safe. Any moment you may get killed or tortured. Sometimes in situations like these, death can be a blessing. Being tortured each day is worse than death. So every minute, every second, they were expecting this. A person alive today will be no more tomorrow. He will be just like floating feathers in the air. The night scented with snow melting blood. The scent of blood was all around, all through the day and the night. It smelt blood. While the compassionate moon is showing the way for the faceless shadows searching for kin. At night, in the moonlight, there was no other source of light there. It was pitch dark. They could only see each other or their shadows in the moonlight at night. So when the moon appeared at night, they were just searching for their dear ones. Parents searching for children, children searching for parents, brothers searching for sisters or other siblings, family members desperately trying to get hold of each other. Oof, what a pathetic picture. No, I don't want to remember, but I cannot forget. Again, the process continues. He's trying to shake it off, but it will not go that easily. Do I want to remember this world upside down? So he's asking himself, is this the image of the world that will continue to be in my mind? The world that is gone astray, a world that is turned upside down, where the departed are blessed with an instant death. So he says, in this world, in this hell, death is the best option. Death, as I told, is a blessing. Those who have departed, those who have dead, they are blessed. While the living condemned to a short, wretched life, the living continues to suffer. Even though they don't have much life left, maybe they'll be killed the next day, or day after tomorrow, or a week later, or a month later. Death was certain. But that span, that was horrifying. That was a wretched life, however long it was, and a long, torturous journey into unnamed place, converting living souls into ashes and gas. And very often, many of them were taken to those gas chambers. That's what he calls a torturous journey. The gas chamber may be within the premises of the camp, but the poet feels that it was long. Each step towards that place felt like so long. They never knew where they are taken to. Sometimes to gas chambers, sometimes to that grave, sometimes they were shot dead while working. whatsoever living souls within the spin of a moment, living souls were converted into ashes and gas. No, I have to remember and never let you forget. And this last line, he has just nailed it. It is so powerful. In the last line, Alexander Kimmel, the survivor, he stops trying to forget about his traumatizing experiences. Okay? And instead of forgetting, he is using those experiences to teach and educate people about these events so that the future generation at least will not make the mistake of repeating it. Kimmel is helping the world to prevent a horror like this from happening again. Because these survivors, like Kimmel or any other Holocaust survivor, they are starting to take little steps to create a better world. And even though they still cannot contain the horror, they are telling us so that history does not repeat itself. Okay, so that is the poem. Hope you all understood. Listen to it again. If you have any doubts, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.